How has your ethnicity played a role in your household?
At the household level, I would say, like, now that I've learned Luo, it's interesting, like, to like discuss things with my mom as well. And like, the thing I love about languages the most is like you really get to see people's personalities. So I know my mom is this very outgoing, strong personality. But when people tell me stories about her in her youth, they're always like, what?
Frame.
Oh,
Yeah, because you're like on the outside.
They're always like, oh, you know, your mom, they call her Lelo. Like, Lelo means like just dramatic and like very like flamboyant. And when I see her, when she speaks in English, I don't really see it. But when she's telling me stories in Luo, I see it. I'm like, like at that level, it's like very like telling as well of her different personalities in Luo. When I go back home to visit my grandmother, you know, like we have this thing, maybe even like for you guys, you have it where you're named after like either your grandmother or their like, you know, so I'm named after my grandmother's mom.
Wait, is that what you guys do? Because I learned in school that you guys go by like the days of the week.
So you can be named like days of the week. You can be named things like, I have a friend who's named Othim, which means born by a bush. Like,
You shouldn't be laughing.
there's a friend of mine whose name is Olunga. And I'm always telling him, like, in Luo, that means, like, Anani Choma, like, Anani Washa, like, you're burning me. And I'm like, for you, your mom was like, he's like, you were just a constant burn. Like, you know, so we have names like that. But my middle name is named after, I got from my grandmother's mom, which means born with the umbilical cord around the neck. So I wasn't, but she was.
Okay.
And so when I go home, my grandmother, it's interesting, she calls me mom. Because like I'm named, so it's like really cool to them because she's like, mom. And when she like wants something from me, she's like, come on, like I'm your child. Like,
that's actually so funny because it's actually similar for me. Because in Kikuyu, how we get named traditionally, we had our elders and they said that, you know, because of lifespans, you can like not live enough to have a very long, productive, you know, loving relationship with your grandparents. And you know how we value age in African culture. So if you're old, you probably like contributed a lot to society. To just forget them was something that was an issue. So we name our children by a particular ancestor based on their birth order and gender, right? So for me, like firstborns, each gender get named after the dad's parents, secondborns, the mom's parents, thirdborns, then you go through like the the dad's parents, oldest sibling, and then you go down like their generation. So I'm named after my dad's mom. I've never met her, it already passed. So it's like, yeah, like that's my name. Wairimu is my Kikuyu name, but like it's like I always think of her with that name, you know. And then even like as I've gotten older, you know, I have uncles that be like, call me mom. They'd be like, oh mom, and it's like I don't have to like live up to it, but it's just like it's an endearment, which is so cute. And also like, you know, so we don't get like say our father's last names because their father's last names would be their their father's ancestor line. So my last name, Kabate, is really my dad's middle name because that's the ancestor that my dad was named afterwards. So that's the name that he passes down.
It's kind of similar for us. But there's like a distinction of like, we want the man as well to have his own name. So for example, my uncle's middle name is actually like, it's his name, but his last name is Odhiambo, right? So he actually doesn't use Odhiambo. He uses his middle name, but his wife uses the last name and his kid uses the last name. Now his son, when he's like, now he's grown up, but he uses his middle name, right?
Okay.
Meaning his wife will use his, it's passed down in some weird way like that. Wait, but I've also heard for Kikuyus, there's this thing where if you're born and you're a guy and your dad's not in your life, then you become like Wa something. So for example, like your son would be like Wawairimo.
Wait.
And apparently that's taboo because actually there's a guy I work with at the office who he didn't have his dad in his life, so he like his mom gave him like the name, so he's like Wa something like, or like he has his mom's last name, so he would like so in culturally they're like, oh, you're for Wawairimo, like you're of the Wairimus, yeah. So apparently in that name, when like Kikuyus look at it, they know like you're not from a lineage of like your dad.
Yeah.
So he was saying politically that can have
that.
great stakes, because then people will be like, who are we voting for? Like, you weren't raised by a man. Like, who's your dad? Like, you don't know who your father is? How can we even claim you? Right? So he's actually going through the process of changing his name.
Oh.
So, like, because he wants to get into politics, right? And so I think that's very interesting, because also it's the same with another friend of mine who his mom did the same thing with him. And when he was growing up and getting his ID, he got rid of that. Like, he didn't put his mom's whatever, because he was like, I don't want people to know just from reading my name that I don't have my dad in my life. And like, I think now that he's older, he like kind of regrets it or whatever. But you know, it's interesting how society is like, you know. But for me, I like my last name. It's not my dad, my grandfather's name, and it's Aura. Yeah, so it's like aura, but also aura.
Okay.
I think the roots, I mean, I don't know, I've asked a couple people, but to me, I would say, like, I think it's just probably because of the closest to the word aura, which means, like, basically the river or something. I think maybe that's probably where it originates from. But I don't know, I'll ask my mama.
That's so Cancer. But on Wa, though, I don't know if it's isolated to those cases, because, you know, like, when we traditionally introduce ourselves, right? I wouldn't go by Kefiana, because that's my name. It'll be Werimo Wa Kabate.
Okay,
Yeah. So it's just like Werimo of this particular family.
What is like you being Kikuyu? How does it manifest politically?
Okay. Okay. So I think we already talked about like the freedom struggles, like Kikuyu's playing a role in that. I also recognize the fact that historically, you know, we've played quite a bit of a role in national politics. Like 3 out of 4 presidents from our ethnic group, and
they're all, well, some of them are family.
2 are, you know, are related, father son. Jomo Kenyatta, he told members of parliament from different tribes that my tribe drinks the milk of the afternoon. Your tribe drinks the milk of the afternoon, which, you know, obviously like denotes that like we get first dibs on like national resources. And obviously, like, you know, now we have more of like a devolved government, so it's not as that like cut, but like we still see that in politics though, like today, like whereby like people are going into office to like, you know, bring back, you know, stuff to their ethnic group. So I feel like, oh, and then also I was talking to a cousin of mine, our mothers are sisters, and her father is Kamba, and they grew up in Machakos in Kamba land. And like we were talking about like China in Africa, specifically China in Kenya, and we were talking about like, you know, pretty much like their presence and all these infrastructure projects. And you know, she was like, I'm for it. And I'm like, but are you not concerned about like the rising debt, etc., etc.? And she's like, you know, y'all tend to forget that, like, see, when we come to visit, y'all have roads, like y'all have a certain level of development that you don't see across the country. If this is how we need to get our infrastructure projects, then that's what it's gonna be, because our development came at the cost of other Kenyans. So the table kind of have to like reverse at some point. I do recognize the fact we kind of have had that leg up historically, but I think it's also a double-edged sword, you know, because when you think, for me, like during the 07-08 post-election like crisis, we were in Lake Baringo. Like, I don't even know why we decided to do that. And it was like, honestly, it was the most beautiful evening of my entire life. Like, you know, like we had like these like, you know, we at Lake Baringo, they're like, you know, the hot springs, and like we set up like a whole like picnic, like on Masai blankets, and like, you know, we're like boiling eggs right there with the stones. It was so cute. And then then we were like flamingos. There's like a flock of flamingos like on the lake, and they're just like, you see them like just like tether their wings, and then like the sun was setting, and we're just like there chilling, just like so lit, like best evening. Afterwards, you know, it wasn't popping, because everywhere we went, like, it's like we look Kikuyu, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like feeling like we're just like this target. So, and it's like for the first time, it's like if someone asked my dad like, oh, you know, where are you from? It was like, oh, you know, we are Embu, we are Meru. And I was like, I feel like I never really thought about what it meant to be Kikuyu at a national level, at a political level, until that time. And it's like, I get, like, you know, when it comes to, like, when people ask you, like, oh, what tribe are you from? Like, I kind of get why, like, people would be, like, reserved to answer. Like, you know, I think people are proud of it, and, like, I would say it, but also, you know, when things are tense, I'm not really trying to answer that question. You know, there are people who, like, get mistaken for a different ethnic group. Like, I went to school with, I don't know if you know her, but her name is Sophie. She did a TED Talk because, like, she was using photography as activism against tribalism, and she's not Kikuyu, but she was mistaken for a Kikuyu person, and, like, she just ended up getting into, like, this, like, threatening situation. So, you know, and then also when you think about, like, in the greater African Great Lakes region, it's actually illegal to ask someone in Rwanda if they're Hutu or Tutsi, just because of, like, you know, like, the history that comes with that. So,
but I feel like they say that, like, for the Westerners, because I feel like when you're an origin to a country, you know what. Usually they ask because my name is not easily placed. Like, it's like a lot of tribes have it, but it's also just a lot of tribes in the Western region that have it. So they're just trying to place me. So they ask my last name, they'll be like, where exactly is that from? But they already have an assumption in their head. Same with you. If you just tell me your last name, I'm gonna know. It's illegal to ask. Like, you know, you're not. It's like a very, like, it's the talks that we have there for Westerners to think that we're.
But, like, do you also think that, like, in the case of Rwanda, obviously neither of us are from there, so
we just gonna speak on it because
if you're from there and you got some other thoughts. You know where to do some talking. You think about, like, the genocide and, like, you know, children that were born during that time. You know, some features get
I guess,
mixed up. So it's like you see certain people and you're like, I know, like, you're from here or there.
Yeah.
Then some people it's like,
the ambiguous ones. Yeah.
I don't know exactly.
I have to say, like, during the post-election violence, there was a lot of what's it called, the Mungikis, who are also attributed to your people as well. With the, you know, us, we have stones, but then they had the pangas, the machetes, just brutal. Anyways, not they. You know, they as an entity. The Mungikis.
Specifically, let's say that.
And then Lou always say the Mungiki. Mungiko did they? Like, it's going to strangle you. But it's also like, oh, change. Like, it's going to change you. Like, okay. So you would get stopped on the road. And, you know, if you looked, first of all, they'd be like, where are you from? You know, you at that point, if you could pass with being ambiguous, you're going to be like, like, then they're going to be like, okay, madam, give me your national identification card.
Hey. That also increases value.
At that point, you start sweating bullets. Because this whole cultural thing about, like, using our names as, like, a placement thing, like, in terms of culture and love, is also the same thing that's going to be used against it. So they'd be like, it's not even funny. It's honestly sad. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you do look ambiguous, like, there are times in conflict where they're just going to be like, give me an eye. Or they're going to be like, speak to me, Say otherwise other than atirere, Because there me, I'll be lost, though. Hear me speak English, and pronounce my L's. And they'll be like, who you? A lot of Kenyans will say, like, you know, tribe does not matter that deeply until it becomes political, like, until there's an election coming up, like, because I think that's one of the things that always, like, shows itself is that, at least for us, is like, given the last one, even this time, you could have, like, a neighbor who's Kikuyu, and you could be, like, the only Kikuyu in the area, but then now when elections start coming, you start packing your stuff up and you move, because you're like, I'm not gonna be the only one up out here so they could throw stones at me. And same with Luz, you're like, I'm going to Kisumu where we're many, If you try me there, you will get a stone right here. You will get a stone right here. You know, I'm not going to wait for you to come and chop me up and my family, you know? And I think that's the thing, even in that time, is like you would have men and women who, like, had intermarried. And during election times, it became strenuous. Like, it was like, girl, it's like a real thing. And I think for me, like, of course, even as Luo, like as a Luo person, we have our leaders who are also like right there with Jomo, like, you know, Jaramogi. We got our Tomboya, like, you know, like we have our political strong points. And I think for me, I would really just summarize it as like, I feel like we've always been there. One, because we are a majority, and like we've always offered the content.
Are you guys a majority?
We're like the top 3.
Oh, I thought y'all were 2.
No, I think we're 3. I think it's Kikuyus, Kalenjins, and then us.
Oh, okay. Oh, you meant like in the larger scheme of things? Wow. Sorry. I was like, we're the majority.
But I feel like if I look historically, like I feel like we always have like the political content. Like we're always playing this part of, as much as like, you know, you have the Mau Mau uprisings, like I feel like we were there with like the philosophies, with the socialism, like with the learnings, you know, and even now, it's interesting to me because I know, like, even though Raila and the Kenyatas, like the Odingas, they're just kind of like these like figureheads that represent like that whole Kikuyu versus Luo thing. But at the end of the day, for me, it's like they go home and they're actually friends. Like, you know what I mean? Their kids hang out. And I think the thing, when I look at Raila, I'm like, he's like a good opposition party. Like, when it's time to play opposition, he plays that role really well. But I just wish that opposing parties like operated all throughout the term. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think they received a lot of criticism for this whole handshake thing, for him conceding to be prime minister. Like, even this time with the elections, when I was in Kisumu, like, I would ask like my cousins, I'd be like, so like, are you gonna go for Raila? And they're like, this time, Baba cow. Baba is taking it. And they would be like, and he better not concede. Like, if they steal it, he better not concede this time. Like, you know? So there's, like, pressure in that way. But, I mean, I always wonder because if you look historically, I feel like we haven't been... Not that we should be allowed into that area, but the point when... With African politics, maybe even just in general, but even in Kenya, the politics have never been about who is actually a good leader or what issues are they standing on. Like, if you look at Jomo Kenyatta and how, like, the presidency has really been passed along, it's all about people who had access to land. Like, you know, the Kenyatas came and they grabbed land. Moi as well, he allowed basically, like, his ally with Kenyatta was basically like, I'll let you guys get some of your land. So there's, like, little things like that. And the point is, because, like, our leaders as well use it to their advantage. Like, there's this whole mindset that the colonialists kind of left over, that it's like, whoever's in power, his people are the ones who are going to eat, right? And so for someone looking at the figurehead being Kikuyu, they're like, damn it, once again, I'm marginalized. I am marginalized not because this leader is not a good leader. I am marginalized because the person in power is Kikuyu. And sometimes I'm like, that doesn't make, like, sometimes I'm like, if you really analyze that, you're going to see there are a lot of Kikuyu people starving. You know, there are a lot of Kikuyu people starving. They're not eating just because Kenyatta's in power. Like, you know, like, it doesn't, there's some correlation, but the way I've seen that our leaders use it as well is I had to go to a funeral in those sides of Bondo, which is, like, Raila's hometown. But it's still Kisumu, like, it's still en route to Kisumu, but I know every time I go to the villages, as I'm encroaching the village, the roads get a little, you know, sad. And so I'm, like, riding the whole time. I'm asleep in the car. I'm like, I wake up, I'm like, why is this ride so smooth? Like, are we going to somebody's village for a funeral? Like, why are these roads so good for, like, 3 hours straight? And they're like, you know this is Raila's hometown now. So now I was like, so if you're someone in the rural area and, like, that is what you see. So that is how they play it up. So you will see, oh, like, the roads to Raila's hometown and everyone who's around there for about 4 hours, like, proximity benefits because that is Raila's hometown. So that is the mentality that I feel like they continue to, like, you know, live on. Like, there's this taxi guy who was taking me back home. I live in Parklands, the Parklands area. And it's, like, the Indian kind of area. And he was like, he's like, you see, the people, you can tell the people in this area don't vote. And I was like, why? And he's like, look at the roads. And I was like, you see, because if you're in an area where people are expecting your votes, those roads are going to be fixed a little bit after elections and a little bit before. So when the pothole starts happening, it's not that bad. But in Parklands, the potholes are deep, which means, like, there are a couple elections that have passed where those roads have not been fixed. And I do think even for older generations, I think when I was younger, I didn't think that I didn't see how tribalistic we as the people really works. I think as the kids, you don't really start to get it.
Yeah.
And I think now that I'm older, I wouldn't say I'm tribalistic, but I also see some of the stereotypes as well, right? So like I can like joke about it. But it's interesting because I would always look at my grandmother as like very like, you know, accepting, loving. But now that I'm older, the conversation is not, what would you do if I bring my Kikuyu friends, right? The conversation when you bring your Kikuyu playmate and you're all, your kids, it's fun, whatever. They're probably saying stuff and you don't know what they're saying. But if you say, like, now in my age, if I say, like, oh, like, Wairimu, like, really got on my nerves, becomes, what did you expect now? My name is Wairimu. And then they feel like, what if I bring, like, a Kikuyu man home? Everyone's like, And one of those, like, a deep, And you're like, where is this coming from? I didn't even know you guys were like this. But then, you see, I think for older generations, it's very rooted in that, like, historically how we have been done dirty by these people, you know, and it's almost like it's like a gang war almost, like it's like these 4 people were like in high school together, let's say, and they all had beef, and so everybody got beef, but the country's still a business, so these 4 people have to be like allies anyways, but like, you know, at the end of the day, you guys maintain the beef, if that makes sense. I don't know.
It makes sense.
It's sad, but you know what, we coming. 2022, we in there.
We'll see.
I can't.
Like Western Kenya, Nyanza. Is that I feel like you guys, and I think kind of going off of what you said in terms of like what your history is, I feel like you guys are the political fire of the country.
Yes.
You know? Like I remember like when I was studying abroad, like we were our offices, our school was based in Kisumu. So you know how like we have like intro classes, One of the first ones they said, "You're on the land of opposition." I was like, okay. So then obviously they talk about
Mind
that
your
and the history. Yeah. And then like when we were meeting with our homestay families, like I had like a very good family, but like, you know, they were like, we're all one people. Like we're pretty much like preaching like we're all one people, let alone tribes. Cause like we only had like 2 Kenyans, and so I was Kikuyu, the other one was Luo. So then, you know, when we go to places, they're like, okay, so we have 2 Kenyans. They're like, okay, so what are your names? Where are you from originally? Where are your villages? So you don't have to be there. And so like my teacher always call me Wairimu. So they always call us by our Kikuyu, our traditional names. So it would be like Ohunga, Wairimu. And so when I say Wairimu, they already know it's a rap. I introduce myself as Kefian, and they're like, but
like, what's your name? And you're like, Tessie, they're like, okay. What is your name? What is the name that your mother gave you? And I'm like, Tessie. And they're like, the other one. Not that one. Well, short could be Kefi. And they're like, the other one. The second one. And then the second one is still like, ambiguous, and like, and the third one.
We have to get to it. We have to get to it eventually.
And then they're just like, where's your hometown? Like in Luo, when someone sees that you're Luo, like the thing I love about Luo is, bro, when they see you, they just go, it means like you're the daughter from, like, where are you from? So, you know, because they can tell you already like Luo, but then like specifically where's your hometown? And you ask that because also like if you're interested, you don't want to like accidentally marry someone who's from like your hometown. So you're like, Anya Kisumu, and they're like, Kisumu where? Kisumu kanye. And they're like, oh, Kisumu kachulu, Putgita. And they're like, oh, Anbe Anja. Like, even though I'm like from this blah, blah, blah. And that's the thing. Like, I feel like you probably noticed this in Kisumu as well. Like, one of my favorite things is that I think in Nairobi it's so mixed. But it still feels very Kikuyu. So everyone around you speaks Kikuyu. So I feel like maybe if you understood Kikuyu, you would feel this as well when you're walking around Nairobi. But for me, when I'm in Kisumu, it is the best thing that these 2 people could be here gossiping about someone, and I know what they're saying. I know what they're saying. I'm like, ooh, the tea is hot. And everyone just speaks to you in Luo, like they're just like, It's like my favorite thing. Like, I'm here for it.
Affirmed.
But like you said, political fire, and you notice. But what was your experience like in Kisumu? Because you were there for like a few months, no?
Yeah, a couple of weeks more so, because like we were like all over the place. I don't think like my experience really pronounced my ethnicity, because I think like once we got it out of the way, that Kikuyu, there's like an awkward, kind of moment there. But I think I can also, because I'm coming with this program, I feel like I can kind of like just like
blend in.
Yeah, but like also just like kind of get into that Americanized code. I feel like my experience in Kenya in general, but even with the program, I feel like I was code switching a lot. Like I feel like I was code switching here in the States, but when I went to Kenya, bro,
code switch.
Yo,
because I was gonna say your experience would have probably even been very different if, let's say, you had another Kikuyu girl in the program. Because what would happen is like you all would be yes, you're there under the guise of students, like that is the main coat that you're wearing.
Yeah,
and then when you're interacting with just you and this little girl, is different. But then also you'll see how when you're interacting with the Kikuyu girl, it'll be very different. Because for me, I'm like thinking if the little girls are probably there, like, yeah, she cool, but she's Kikuyu though. She's a Kikuyu woman now. You have to be careful. Yeah? And then that's the same thing the other girl will be telling you. She probably should be like, well, we're in that line, so
Yeah, because the other guy, he was Luo, but I think he spent most of his time in the States. So like he was kind of like pretty much like detached to that like rivalry. So it's just like, we're both Kenyan, bro. Yeah. We're in this together, man. We're in this together, But then I remember like one time we went on this, we had a meeting somewhere in Kisii, and we were having a conversation about like politics, and how like we actually talk about like circumcision actually, and how like
that's another stereotype.
The Kisii community. So the Kisii community does that, right? But like obviously now it's outlawed. But like sometimes like there are tensions because you have doctors that ultimately are Kisii, and so they subscribe to that culture. So maybe like they'll have GOs or whatever. But so we're talking about like tribalism and like voting along ethnic lines, and so we're talking about like how I think like we really need to come to this point whereby like we don't vote along ethnic lines, and we come to think about like leaders just as leaders, like what are they actually bringing? And it's like I get like opposition in terms of like you kind of want someone from your area because you're able to benefit, but like when I was making that point, because one of the lecturers was also Kikuyu. The death stare I got.
She was like,
"At you're not voting for your own people,"
and there you go.
What?
I'm always like, for me, I'm like, at this point, it's clear that no matter who we have on there, they're gonna like mess up, right?
Bro.
So I always say, let's
that's so
vote.
Pessimistic.
No, but I always say like that's not the struggle we want right now.
Yeah.
As a people, we need to put some fire up under these people, because right now we've put fire up under them where before elections they'll do stuff for us, after elections they'll do a little bit, and then just fuck up for the next 4 years until the next one. Yeah. So I say, punish them after their first term. So for this last election, I was saying, we've already had Uhuru. What has he done for you? If you feel that after you've been complaining about things and they were not fixed, when you go to that ballot, it does not matter who you vote for. You just don't vote for the one who has proven to you they cannot do a good job. So you can put Abdul, I think the other guy was like Abdullahi, or the other candidates. Vote for anyone else except for the person who's been in power and has failed you. Because what that says is it doesn't really matter who takes the place next. But what it shows to the person that takes it next, they say, oh my God, I will be kicked out if I don't do something. So to me, I'm like, I'm not going to convince you all. So if you say, if who was in power in your Kikuyu and you feel like you cannot vote for Raila, cool, like in the last election, vote for someone else. There were like 7 names on the ballot. Vote for someone else just to prove a point. Because now when they put those numbers up, they're going to see like, damn, people are like, I'll vote for you. Let's say, like, maybe we say like, fine, you want a little man up there? Yeah, vote for the little one. But after he's done his first term, really evaluate that nigga and be like, you're not getting a second term. Because that's the thing with a lot of these leaders. They just care about finishing both terms.
Yeah.
But if you that's the legacy as a people I think we can maintain. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's something as a people we can commit to.
2 things. First, I was talking to a fellow Kikuyu person. My time,
And you know these
throughout
Kikuyu
my time,
these Kikuyu women love Luo men.
They
love Luo men
throughout
because the Kikuyu men don't treat them right.
cancel throughout at some point throughout my time there, I heard there's this Kikuyu fear that so say for example now you're saying if we were voting this last election that we don't vote for Uhuru. So then that means Raila is kind of like up there. So if we have a Kalenjin get into power, there's this fear that like, what are they gonna do, bro?
Yeah,
they've been waiting for this seat for
how
many elections?
But that's the benefit.
How many decades?
But you guys have already rigged the system in that, like, your name's already on some title deeds. You've already accumulated wealth where you can protect certain things. And yes, perhaps if someone else is in power, in position of power, might try to, like, move those pieces around. But again, that is only because us as a people, we would allow it. Like, if we would say, if we tell our leader, like, no, follow processes. You're not going to just come and grab this land because now you're in power. Versus, I mean, land grabbing goes along all the time. And you have people who are like act as watchdogs, like the people on the ground who say, no, that's been a public space for 50 plus years. This is not land that you can make like your own. So no,
but
you're not grabbing it.
Have you watched Tuco Macho? There's this like really nice series. It's on YouTube. It's like, it just shows like the ills of Nairobi and like, you know, just like the political underground. But essentially they showed like how a politician can steal an election, you know? Like if you have like police forces literally transport already marked up ballot votes from one location to the other in favor of one particular politician. So it's like maybe technically the country didn't vote for one candidate, but because the sitting president was able to transport ballots already marked before the election from one point to the other, they're able to rig the election that way and then come into power. So I hate to say this, but I think it's gonna take a lot for us to like get to the point where a lot.
Oh, they said laws. Like there's several laws.
Yeah. When you look at our laws, like probably look on point. But like,
I think we need someone to just come and be like we really like KOT hashtag Kenyans on Twitter. Like we need to start moving. Like that's my idea. I'm like, you know what? Fine, let everyone vote tribalistic, but let's all at least agree that if you get your first term, and a lot of us are not happy. Kikuyus, please, let's just agree to not vote another Kikuyu, like the same Kikuyu guy in. Like, I feel like that's general. That's something that we as Kenyans can just agree to. Essentially, we're saying like we're allowing this majority to rule and they're only voting based of fear. So they're okay with the status quo for their own protection, right? Which is like unfounded upon, because at the end of the day, you're still kicking with these politicians. Raila and the Kenyatas are friends. Yeah. He's not going to do something, like, you know what I mean? Like, this fear is unfounded upon because these people are cool with each other. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they cool. Like, they're not going to, like, start another rivalry. Actually, like, we'd be very surprised with what would happen if, like, a little person did get into power. Like, but that's the thing. Why are we so... I think so too. Are we okay with things how they are and really aren't afraid to switch things up? I'm like, just punish whoever... To me, I'm like, you know, even if we can't agree, and then we can agree, we can say even, because I feel like, and then we can say then, if now, let's say both people, you already know they're not, like, if you're like, okay, Uhuru wasn't a great president in the first term, and Raila as well, I would be damned. I'd be damned if I let a little man be in power. If that's how you feel, then yes, Kikuyus, rally up to vote for the person who is least likely to win, right? Just put your majority there, because those numbers alone would scare people. Like if they, even if like, let's say Raila does win, those numbers seeing like, damn, like these people voted for, they're like, they don't care about voting for their own again. Like they want results. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that could be a very, right? And that's like a way of like now even teaching us as a people to be like, yeah, we can demand for results. And it's easy. And you think, right? And you can say, well, the person, let's say Raila is next to win because people won't vote the current president out. When Raila wins, he's also going in knowing, shit, these people will vote me out after my first term.
Keep me accountable.
If I don't do shit right. So if he does go and grab land and starts all this shit, he's doing that at the expense of knowing the next one. The next one, we are taking you out. We're taking you out. And I get it with, I think people think, oh, when you're there, yeah, you can't steal votes, you can't make it, But no, because we are showing you that we are the country of accountability. Like, if we just dared, you know, like, even the fact that there can be a documentary showing forged an election, then you'd have, you know, people on there being like vigilantes, being like, let me see what is in the truck. And that's what happened this time. There were people who were like screenshotting what the election observers were doing a lot in Kisumu. They were screenshotting how they were closing some stations because they were like, nah. These are going to be free and fair. And we're going to ensure wreaths. So I think that's the move. I think that's the new wave.
That's the move.
The next political, what's it called? The next person running for political seat like that, like, hire me as your campaign manager.
Hello? But you know what? Actually, I think I'll take back what I said about being not very hopeful. I think the intentions can definitely be there, but I think especially, like, maybe I'm being optimistic here, but I'm thinking, like, with the use of blockchain technology, I think we could actually get better over time. Like, especially, like, we're seeing already a trend with Rwanda, how they're using blockchain technology for land title deeds, and just having that transparency that this land is for this person, you know. And I think that can, like, because we do have lands in Kenya that don't have title deeds, but we know, like, it's communal lands, etc., etc. If we can use that technology and bring it into elections, it's gonna make it a lot harder to rig.
And there are people mapping now, like, they have communities mapping what is communal land, what is public land, like da-da-da-da-da. And I feel like, yeah, they just probably need to digitize that and make it harder to just, you know, switch out some names, like, you know. But we got a long way to go.
But we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
I hope we get there in my lifetime more.
Like, in our lifetime. In our lifetime. In our lifetime. It'll happen.
But
maybe
if not,
when
it's okay. Yeah, if not,
it's okay.
Because I know my descendants will be presidents of India, presidents of Sri Lanka, presidents of Syria, presidents of, you know, successful outside. we will be naturalized in other countries, and we will lead with the iron fist. We will be lovable. You saw how Barack was, Even Barack speaks, you can just see the lowness.
Yeah. You guys are great orators. Y'all eloquent. I'm hyping you guys up.
You're in my life.
Wow.
You're in my life.
On my channel.
You're my cards. Anyways, I think that's our last question. Right. Good though. Yeah, it was good.
It was good. All right.
So you can find me.
Yes. Plug in, Tessie.
You can find me at I am Socrates on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, like all social media. I am Socrates. I'm a poet as well, you know, like a lot of y'all, when I was speaking that Swahili in the beginning, y'all noticed how a lot of my words was just like, you know, freely rhyming, and that's because that's in here, you know, just naturally. I also have a podcast called At 254 Kaarada, Kaarada, with the 254 in the beginning. That's all about staying woke and keeping myself alert, and also just kind of giving political commentary on what is going on the continent as a whole. So yeah.
And also, I'm gonna be featuring on
her podcast. She's on the next episode.
Yes. So this will probably come out by the time the podcast comes out.
Yeah,
so
then you'll put like
the link down below.
Put the link here.
You know, I'm used to YouTube. You know, it's a slow progression to these technical skills now. You know, slowly but slowly. You see now. Eventually we'll get there.
Exactly. Click the link here by my earring, right in the hoop.
You know, check out this choker.
Ooh.
Right here.
Kefiana doesn't have this, which is literally this. Oh, you do? Wait, I got a backup.
I got a backup.
Let me tell you, I was taking.
Wait for the backup.
And she's getting the backup. Let me tell you, I went to Vancouver once, and like there's like there's
like my brother was
in places where you don't think you're gonna run into like a Kenyan, right? So I went to the counter and I was like talking to this black guy. I'm like, yo, so where's the next like store where I can shop or something? And he was like, oh, you don't know. There's like a store. Let me tell you, I was taking a And he just sees my bracelet. At first he was like paying me in mind because he's like, he's a concierge. He's like, listen, 2 a.m. What store do you expect to be open right now? And then he gets a peep at my bracelet, like just looking down. And then he looks at me and he looks at the bracelet, looks at me, and he's like, damn, I don't know if I should talk to you because you fine or should I talk to you because you're Kenyan? And I was like, both. Same thing happens when I was taking the MARC train. I was giving the guy my ticket and he's like, where are you from? I'm like, at first I'm like, why? Like, what are you asking me for? Then he's like, where are you from? And I'm like, Kenya. At first I was like, I don't know, did I say Baltimore? I was like, Kenya? And he's like, oh, Abariako. And I was like, ah! I was like, you already know. It's like, this, if you're abroad, matters.
Yeah. This is like kind of like your identity.
Like when you're in Kenya, like if you have this, like no one's gonna bat an eyelash, but every Kenyan has this in Kenya. But you just don't realize the significance until you leave. Until you meet a foreigner there. Then they're like, does every Kenyan have this?
Yes.
Proudly.
Yes.
So
I'm questioning your identity if you don't. Low-key.
And I got this made actually. It has my last name on it. I don't know if they can see.
Okay. Mine, I just go from town.
I always see it in photos. Like, let's say if I'm like, someone catches a photo of me, like, I can't even say, no, that wasn't me because like the bracelet is usually in it. It wasn't me. And they'll be like, your hair, your face, the bracelet. Girl.
But I feel like I always get identified like by my face. Like literally just recently, like I was at like a business center and I was just like working. Then this guy comes around and he's like, he sits down and he's like, Abariako. I'm like, how'd you know?
I don't know. Maybe it's the bracelet. Do you always have it on?
No, because I had like a jacket over.
Okay.
And he was like, I know. Oh, I know when I see my people. Granted, he was from Meru, so you know it's
the Gema. You know, guys are called the Gema.
Yes,
the
Gema.
Embu Meru Association. Although I've heard the Merus don't really fuck with y'all like that.
Who?
The Merus. Like they like to be like distinguished. Like, because you know when you see them, you're like, aren't y'all like the same people? And they're like, Meru. We're very different.
I've never heard that actually.
I mean, election time, they're like, okay, Gema. I've heard like they don't like to be
kind of grouped.
Yeah, they're like, we're Meru, like we're different. And I'm like, but y'all speak. They're like, we can understand. But this was good. Thanks for inviting me to your channel.
Of course. Thanks for gracing the channel. Oh, we have so much good stuff though, and I like it. I like it
too.
As we said, we can't put a timestamp untrue.
No, you can't.
And that's that.
That's that.
Get down below for further information.